The thrifted items on this table have been divided based on where they were purchased. Can you tell which items were purchased in the Southwest and which in the Midwest? Hi, it's Sherry. Welcome back to my channel, Canterbury Cottage. Today's video is jam-packed full of ideas and information about thrift shopping. I recently took a trip to Arizona, and while I was there, of course, I had to visit some thrift stores. While I was shopping, I noticed some very interesting differences between the thrift stores in the Southwest and those here in the Midwest. In today's video, I'm going to tell you about those differences and what you should be looking for. I'm also going to show you what I bought in each place. And finally, I'm going to complete some DIY projects using my thrifted finds. Well, we have a lot to get through, so let's get started. In the Midwest, you can almost always find a nice selection of vintage metal items at your thrift store, including brass, silver, copper, and pewter. Although genuine antiques are less common, you can still find them if you keep an eye out. Vintage books and vintage frames are actually readily available, and I purchase them all the time. However, this vintage camera and cheese box were lucky finds. I have mentioned before that small wood decor is a great bargain at thrift stores, and this is definitely true if you live in the Midwest. Here is the vintage weather instrument that I upcycled in my last video. And look at this beautiful wooden mirror for only $35. If you are looking for full sets of china or individual pieces of vintage china, then definitely look in the Midwest. I own several sets of thrifted china, and I have bought all of them at a great price. Handcrafted items are also fairly easy to find, such as embroidery, needlepoint, AFGHANS, quilts, and of course, crocheted doilies. Even these artfully displayed dried flowers. Vintage furniture is almost always a fantastic buy in the Midwest. You can often find beautiful solid wood furniture that just needs a little bit of love. Furniture from the 50s, 60s, and 70s is really quite affordable. Although the genuine antique furniture is pricier, you can sometimes come across a great deal, like this rocker for only $4.99. Okay, now let's talk about what you should be looking for when shopping in the Southwest. Newer dishes and kitchenware are plentiful and very reasonably priced. However, a complete set of traditional china was nowhere to be found. Even individual pieces of vintage china were nearly non-existent. But I did find this set of blue and white spode dishes for only $15.99. The selection of kitchen and bedroom linens was one of the best I have ever seen, and the prices were comparable to those in the Midwest. I'm pretty sure that I'm older than any piece of furniture that I saw in the Southwest, but they did have a great selection of newer furniture. I was particularly impressed with the prices on the newer upholstered furniture. This huge curved sofa was only $85, and this darling little striped club chair was only $35. I have never seen such a large selection of picture frames and framed art. Some of the smaller frames were under $1. There was a lot of Tuscan-style art from the early 2000s. There was a huge selection of tabletop decor, newer items, many of which still had the original store sticker on the bottom. There was a great deal of Tuscan-style tabletop decor as well. Much of the decor looked like something you would find at a home goods store at half the price. This wall of faux flowers and greenery was amazing, and so were the prices. So did you guess correctly? These mostly vintage and handcrafted items were purchased in the Midwest. And these mostly newer items were purchased in the Southwest. Sorry, Budweiser fans, but I decided to make over these coasters into something that goes a little bit better with my home decor. I went over the images with my orbital sander, and then I applied 2 thin coats of Zinsser primer. I measured the coasters and then printed out images of vintage library cards to fit. I applied Mod Podge both to the coaster and to the back of the image. When you do this, it allows you a little bit of time to adjust the image on the surface and get it lined up just right. When the Mod Podge was dry, I applied 3 separate thin layers of a clear top coat. I sanded the edges a bit to smooth them out. I also painted a crate from Dollar Tree and attached a little public library sign to hold the coasters. You can find links to all of these images in the description box below. This little home goods clock was already really cute, but I hadn't decoupaged anything for a while. The clock portion popped right out, and I used a small screwdriver to remove all of the hardware. Then I painted it with 2 coats of ivory chalk paint. When decoupaging with napkins, you must remove the back layer or layers first. Use only the top layer with the image. You can use the entire napkin if you like. I prefer to cut out the individual images and then arrange them in a design that I like. Apply Mod Podge to your object and then carefully apply the napkin. Go over the napkin with another coat of Mod Podge. Cut or tear off the extra napkin. Have fun with your design. Here I decided I wanted the leaf to travel up onto the lid of the trunk. I also put a small piece of napkin on the clock face itself. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I love these botanical napkins and I have used them on many projects. If you like them too, I'll be sure to put the Amazon link below in the description box. I love the way this clock turned out, and I think it looks great next to the green cabinet that I did in last week's video. These tin tiles don't look vintage due to the paint treatment, but if you flip them over and look at the back, you can tell they are quite old. I painted the first with 2 coats of Waverly white chalk paint, and the other one I painted with 2 coats of Waverly moss chalk paint. When the paint was thoroughly dry, I distressed both pieces using 150 grit sandpaper. Now the paint treatment actually reflects the age of the tin tiles. I felt the white tile looked a bit too new still, and so I rubbed some mud all over the tile and let it dry for a couple hours, and then I wiped it off. I really like the way that it turned out, and it looks really good next to another tin tile that I already had. I haven't yet, but I might put mud on the green one too. I love turning these votive candle holders into planters. I cut out a piece of hard styrofoam and put it in the hole where the candle would go. I like to start by adding a succulent, and then I like to add a floral element and something leafy. Finally, I like to add something a little droopy, something that will hang over the edge a bit. Because these are rather small, you can actually just use bits and pieces of leftover florals you might have. I think these make darling little arrangements that you can put almost anywhere. At first, I wasn't going to do anything with this vintage camera, and then I thought I might drill a hole in the top for a fake plant. But finally, I decided just to stick some hard styrofoam in the back of the camera and stick the fake plant in there. Although you would only be able to see it from the back, I did hot glue some sheet moss to cover up the styrofoam. To make the carved design on this old wood bowl more prominent, I decided to paint the exterior with 2 coats of Waverly Black chalk paint. Then I distressed it using 150 grit sandpaper. I rubbed on some clear wax with a rag and then used a wax brush to get down into the grooves. I used my rag to wipe off the excess wax. I like how the carving really stands out now. I don't know if this was originally a salad bowl or not, but I'll be using it for decor, not for lettuce. I originally bought this framed print for the frame only, but then I decided I kind of liked the print, especially the blue milk cans. And so I thought I might paint the frame in a matching blue color. I used 2 coats of Waverly chalk paint in agave. I lightly distressed it with 150 grit sandpaper. Then I applied a coat of clear wax using a wax brush and wiping off the excess with a rag. To make the print look more like an original oil painting, I bought this clear gloss medium at Walmart. I went over the objects in the image using paint strokes that I imagined an artist might use. When that was dry, then I went over the entire background with the clear medium. When it was dry, I popped it back in the frame and folded down the original staples to hold it in place. Ever since I made over the large entertainment center into a china cabinet for my dining room, I knew that I needed to take down my gallery wall of bird pictures. The bird pictures and the cabinet were conflicting focal points competing for the eye's attention. Oddly enough, this small blue and white plate gave me the idea and motivation I needed to redo this wall. I tried to pull the nails straight out to reduce any extra damage to the drywall. Of course, it was still necessary to spackle the nail holes, which I sanded over a bit after the spackling was dry. Eventually, I want to repaint the dining room, but for now, I just decided to touch up the spots with leftover paint that I had saved in a mason jar. The wall looked pretty splotchy, so I applied a second coat using a small roller. I used a level to create a straight horizontal and vertical line in the center of the wall. I applied 3 or 4 command poster strips to the back of each plate that I wanted to hang on the wall. I started with a silver plate in the center and built out from there. I created a circle of large plates around the center silver plate. I didn't want it to be too symmetrical, so I randomly applied the small plates around the edges. This candlestick is nearly 2 feet tall, so I thought it might make a good plant stand. I popped the metal plate off and I found a wood round in my stash. I traced around it on some junk mail, cut it out, folded it into fourths, and cut a small hole to mark the center. I lined it up and made a mark on my wood round. I then repeated the process using a circle the size of the top of the candlestick. I apparently forgot to turn the camera on when I glued these 2 pieces together using Starbond super glue. They very kindly sent me a variety pack of glues to try, and so I wanted to show you how they work. You apply the super glue to one of the pieces and spray the accelerator on the other piece. If you use the medium or the thick varieties, you will have a little bit of time in which to jiggle the pieces together to get them lined up perfectly. Hold it in place for a few seconds, and that's it. Your 2 pieces are strongly bonded together. Shockingly, it works extremely well when gluing 2 pieces of wood together. There is a link in the description box and a code for 10% off if you're interested in trying the Starbond glue for yourself. This plant stand was so easy to put together. I thought this needlepoint art was quite pretty, but I couldn't find a place for it, so I decided to turn it into a pillow. I pulled off the backing from the frame and removed the needlepoint, which had been taped to a piece of cardboard. I removed the duct tape and was pleased to find that there was a lot of extra fabric that had been folded over the edge of the cardboard. Unfortunately, cleaner would not remove the residue that was left behind on the edges by the duct tape. I pinned some fringe face down along the edges on the front side of the needlepoint. I sewed this down using the lines on the fringe as a guide. I pinned the needlepoint to a scrap of fabric with the right sides of fabric facing each other. I sewed the 2 pieces together, following along the stitching that was created when I attached the fringe. I left a small opening along the bottom so I would be able to stuff the pillow. Using that hole, I turned the pillow right side out. I used the stuffing from an old bed pillow to fill it. When the pillow is full, use pins to close the opening. Then you can hand stitch or machine stitch the hole closed. You could even close it with a little bit of hot glue. I am so glad I took this needlepoint out of the frame because I think it makes a darling little pillow. Here's Tuesday's tip. When you're at a thrift store and they bring out a new cart of merchandise, don't be shy. Speed walk right over to that cart before someone else grabs the very thing you've been looking for. Well, thanks for watching today. I know the video was a little longer than usual, but I hope you got some ideas that you can use in your own home. And to my subscribers, I want to take just a minute to tell you how very much I appreciate you. My channel has grown so quickly over the last few weeks, and I know that that is only possible because you watch my videos and leave comments and give me thumbs up, and I truly appreciate it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, that's all for today. Until next Tuesday, bye-bye for now.